Okay. Hi, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. I'm here to represent Miss Schuster, as you know.
Okay, yep. And my name's Garrett. I'm representing Calberta Christian University. So,
Cool. How long have you worked for the university?
worked there for like I said, it's been a little bit at least. So, yeah, just a
Nice.
legal representative for them as they do other different things. But then, how long have you been representing Miss Schuster?
Quite a while. I grew up in the area. I went to high school with her kids, actually. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. And how's she?
Good. Yeah. She's feisty 89-year-old. She's still pretty spry. You
Yeah,
like working for the school?
I like it. Yeah, seems like a good college and good place for people. I didn't go there, but I made a mistake and went to the U.S. Air Force Academy actually.
Didn't
So
we all?
yeah, so
Nice.
yeah, but well, glad to hear that you're doing well. She's doing well, all that stuff.
Yeah, you
So
too.
all right,
Okay.
so just sounded like she was wanting to talk. I know that we had reached out to her before. As you know, the school has been looking at acquiring property in the area around the school, expanding, and just various infrastructure that they're trying to make the school better with. And we had spoken with Miss Schuster just in previous years, just interest in her property, but I just heard that she was interested in speaking now, and so I didn't know uh, exactly what was interesting her at this point. Kind of, what is she looking for, and what's her thought process as far as meeting with us.
So she's not under a ton of pressure to sell, I will tell
Mhm.
you. But she's also not against selling.
Okay.
Um, there are a lot of there are a lot of moving parts with her, and I'll be happy to get into that more later. But
Yeah.
I'll say that I'd like to set the tone and say that I think if we make a good deal with a fair price, she would be willing to take it. Um,
Okay.
and I'd like to start by asking you, what are you exactly looking to do with the land when you acquire it?
So real quick, I just want to clarify something that I can get right to that. Is this something where you need, regardless of what we end up doing, do you have authority to make a deal right now, or is this like you're just collecting offers and then you'll go back to her to get like final?
So that depends on exactly what the deal is going to be. If we're
Okay,
talking just numbers for a house, I do have the authority to go forward.
but
If
if we
we were
get
going to get more creative with our options, I might have to go back and check with Miss Schuster. But I do have a couple set numbers that I'm allowed to move forward with if we agree on those.
okay, so I'm a little bit in the same boat. So I mean,
Okay.
I'm very much for any creative options. We just might, if we get to like a certain level of extreme creativity, we might be a little bit struggling with commitment at that point. It just may be something where like we have to go back and talk a little bit. But
Right.
um,
And we're not against creativity at all. We just would have to check back.
right, exactly. So to kind of get an answer to your original question, so what we are looking to do is in that area, we're looking to we're building hopefully within uh 3 to 5 years. We're trying to build a religious center as well as a performing arts center. So
Okay.
just more infrastructure to benefit the students, give them more opportunities for things to do while they're at the school, as well as professional development type things. So, um, given it's a Christian university, it makes sense to have, uh, you know, well developed religious center, but also performing arts centers, just things that will help out at any college really and give
Cool.
the students.
And when you say 3 to 5 years, does that mean like start construction in 3 to 5 years, have start and finish in 3 to 5 years?
Uh, from my understanding of it, um, the construction is probably 3 to 5 years away because so I don't know exactly how long it'll take. I would imagine they would want to be done in 5 years, but it could take longer. It's more that they'll be starting hopefully in about 3 years because we're still trying to get funding for it. And there's just other issues that I'm a little bit removed from that they have to resolve. I'm sure, you know, all whatever it takes to build in a city. So like zoning requirements, things like that. So it's still a little ways down the road.
Okay.
So
So starting in 3 years would not be an issue for us. At the very, very longest, Miss Schuster would like a year to move out of the house. Um, that's max.
yeah.
So yeah, 3 years works for us. Um, and whenever you say funding, what does that look like?
So that's something that I'm not really involved with a whole lot. That's typical ways the private school is going to be trying to acquire funds, through donors, through the money that they're getting off of tuition, things like that. So it's stuff that uh, I don't know as much about, but I mean, with it being a private Christian university, they're obviously have different funding sources than the public schools to a degree, but still like the traditional funding that you would imagine. So
Right.
various grants and whatnot. So, and then with Miss Schuster, I was wondering, does she have um, with this house, because it sounds like it's been in her family for a while. I didn't know if this is something what her family situation looked like. Does she have other family that's interested in it or friends, or is that something that's not as much of um
Are you talking about like someone she might be wanting to pass the house down to?
yeah, that type, well, that or just I didn't know what her family situation was like at all, even if she had like, younger family that was in the area or
Yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you about that. So she does have several kids that live in the state. The house is sentimental to her, but not terribly much. Um, she does not plan to leave the house to the kids itself. They all have very good jobs.
okay,
Her main priorities right now are remaining independent because she is old, but she's still very active and she does a lot of things for herself. So if she were to
okay,
move, she's not necessarily super worried about what's going to happen to the house. She's mainly worried about moving to a place where she can remain independent, not too far from her kids, and in a financially stable situation.
okay. And when she says independent, is that just mostly is she looking at like financial independence, like she, or is it mostly just like the ability, like to leave whenever she wants and go, like what enjoy whatever lifestyle she wants? Like I don't know if is she worried about like home ownership necessarily, or is it that she's
Yeah,
okay?
so she is financially independent. The house has been in the family for 50 years, so it's paid off. And she's living off her deceased husband's money and social security.
Okay,
Whenever we're talking about independence, it's like she just likes taking care of herself, going to the grocery store herself, things like that.
yeah. Real quick, I just realized I did not hit record on this, but do you have the recording going right now?
Yeah, it's going.
Okay, perfect. We should be good with. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought
Yeah, don't worry
whenever I
about it.
sent it to you, yeah. Okay. Um, okay, but yeah, that all makes sense then. So yeah, that sounds like those are all things that should be important to her.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure what her family situation was looking like and what the interests of her kids were and any grandkids or anything like that. So
Yeah,
okay,
so the interests with the kids are staying so in the same state as them, and also she doesn't need to leave a ton of money to them because they do have good jobs, but she wouldn't feel super comfortable like leaving nothing to them. So as long as she could leave a little bit to them would be good.
okay. All right, yeah, that all makes sense. Does she have any connection to our school at all? I know she lives like, I mean, right in this area. That's just something I was also wondering. I didn't know if any of her, with it being right here.
So as their lawyer, I don't know if they told you this, but the I want to say advisors, some people at the school, some high ups at the school, some people who have reached out to her before have become very frustrated with her for refusing to sell and called her some names,
Oh,
to
okay.
include stubborn old broad, and they've also raised their voice at her. Um, and so she is not the hugest fan she doesn't have anything against the students of the school, but the people who are like
Ad-
actually in charge of the school, she's not a fan of.
Administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something where if you um so as far as like the rest of this, she'll be um granted we're talking to each other, but like I'll be the face of the school at this point. So if you could let her know that I apologize for that. That's absolutely unacceptable for someone to say that to another person, regardless of what the situation is. But
Yeah, thank
uh,
you.
yeah, if you just let her know that, yeah, that's I don't I don't know why someone would be like that. There's jerks
Thank
everywhere,
you. I'll
but
let her know. That means a lot.
so okay, well, knowing that, which isn't necessarily ideal, but I'm sure we can. That's something where if she ever wants to speak, just feel free to give her my information, and I can talk to her about any type of that, anything like that. But at least good. Sounds like she doesn't have an issue with the student population. I know sometimes living in a college town may not be great, but hopefully living right next to a Christian college is maybe a little bit more calm. So
Yeah.
okay, um, yeah. So it sounds like what's her goal as far as where she wants. So you said she wants to live in the state, uh, close by to family. Does she have anywhere in mind that she's looking at, like a house, apartment, anything she was looking at renting?
She does have an apartment picked out. And it's not something that it's she's dead set on. It just happens to meet all of her requirements.
Okay.
Which is actually something I wanted to mention to you whenever we're getting creative with our options. I don't know if you have within your wheelhouse access to living options. But she's really just looking for in like a two-bedroom apartment, one for herself and one for family to visit, in an area where she can be self-sufficient because she does not drive.
Okay. All right.
That's her main priorities right now, and in the state, obviously. That's
Yeah.
her main thing with a new place to live.
No, that definitely makes sense. And not driving that also. Well, so the apartment that she found that satisfies everything, like she's within living distance. Do you have a price on like what that's going to be costing her?
Yeah, it's about 4,000 to move in and then 3,000 a month.
30,000 a month. Okay. Let me take a look real quick at something. I'm really bad at math. I just want to pull out my calculator for a second.
Okay.
Okay. Um, so is that something where she would potentially be interested if we assisted her with moving into that, like as far as the payment, moving into that area?
Very much so. That would definitely help. That would definitely help. Uh,
Okay.
and on top of that, something that's also important to her is, have you read the Edith Macefield story?
So I actually, yes, I did look into that. Out of Seattle, right? Where I can't remember the industry that was purchasing all the land around it, but yes, we're essentially I saw the picture of like her house surrounded by the industrial stuff that they were building. So
Right. So Elsie does look up to Miss Edith, but if you've researched in some of the documents about the story, Edith Macefield actually did not have a negative relationship with the person who was trying to buy her house.
right,
Things just really didn't work out.
yeah,
So take with that what you will.
yeah,
Elsie's she's honestly scorned really from the administration of the university, and she doesn't want to give her house up for a small amount of money.
right. Of course, she doesn't want to just be um, yeah, that absolutely makes sense because you don't. There's no reason to just get ran over like that. And granted, with the way that they behaved, that totally makes sense.
And can I
Um,
ask you, do you have any more interests that I may not yet know about?
uh, again, the big, like, kind of the big things for us. So um, we're building this religious uh center and the performing arts center. We would like to stretch out payments to Miss Mayfield, or sorry, no, not Miss Schuster.
Mhm.
And we would like a definite date of to take possession of the property, preferably no later than 2 years, because we are trying to get that groundbreaking done within like on that third year.
Okay.
So those are kind of our the definite date of possession is important to us, and then stretching
When you
out
say
payments.
stretched payment, oh yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say that's not like it's not that we're gonna walk away if we can't stretch out payments or something like that. We would just prefer that, which we thought could be helpful in her sense if maybe we're assisting with where she's moving into next.
Yeah, that stretched payments would not be an issue. Are you talking like we're gonna agree on a price and then you'll send like a fraction of that price every so and so amount of time?
Yeah, we could do that, and it could even be something where, um, just look. You mentioned that she was interested in having something to give to her children.
Right.
Um,
And it doesn't have to be huge. She just wants like the formality of not leaving nothing for her kids.
yeah, and kind of in my mind, what that tells me we can do right now is we actually agree on a price. That way, it's not just keep going until someone runs out of money or whatever. But
Mhm.
if we agreed on a price, we can help pay for her living. Sounds like she's also bringing in social security stuff like that. Um, and not to sound bad, but I mean she is elderly at this point. It's realistic we can probably sustain her for the duration of her life,
Mhm.
and then just depending on how long she lives, once she passes, whatever's left in that kind of pot of money that we said this is going to her, that can be dispersed, basically given to her estate to be divvied up amongst her children, however she wills it.
Okay. Yeah, that's not something we would be opposed to. Um, and before we talk numbers, I would like to ask you a little bit more about, you said religious center. Can you tell me more about that? Are you trying to knock the house down? And what exactly does the religious center entail? Is that like a church?
So, to be perfectly honest with you, from the details that I've been given, the religious center, um, so we have it's a religious center and a performing arts center that's not being built right on that property. It's being built so we've recently acquired some properties to the side, or like in that area.
Right.
And so like that's where we're hoping to be putting that. We're just looking for other infrastructure now, supporting areas. So
And what
things
do you
like
mean by that? Like, do you want to, like, she does not care what happens to the property once you tear it down. So, like, are you looking to just turn it into a parking lot?
yeah, so that's ideally what we're looking for is a
Okay.
parking lot in that area. And then we have a few other lots that we've acquired where we'll have like admin buildings and whatnot. But if that's something where she doesn't care at all, then preferably that region would be best for us for a parking lot.
Yeah, she does not care what you do with the house once you acquire it.
Okay.
Um, all right. So I feel like that I've communicated all of my interests.
Yeah, and
Is
I think I don't have a whole lot else right now that I feel like we're both in a pretty good spot as far as like what the college is wanting, what Miss Schuster is wanting out of this. So
okay, cool. So a couple options that I think we've kind of both mentioned is you've talked about doing a long-term payment for the house to Miss Schuster. That could work. And you included in that you were talking about helping cover her moving costs, right?
moving costs that can also be like assisting with rent, um, that type of thing. So
Okay. Um, and also I would like to throw out there, um, just to have out on as an option on the table. Potentially, I would obviously have to check back with her with this, but if you needed to run admin in her house as well before she completely moved out, that's something that we could discuss as well.
okay. And honestly, in her situation, we have the admin buildings we need. So I
Okay.
think that is a good idea, but I almost, if she would prefer to just have the time in her house, and not have us having to, be running around inside her house doing stuff, we could probably just leave her, um, leave her alone until she gets moved out of the house.
Cool. That's easier on me because I don't have to talk to her about it. Would
Yeah,
you
I
be
just
able
I just
to?
know personally I maybe
Me
wouldn't want
too.
that so much. So
Um, would you be up as another option, potentially asking some students to help her move?
we could do that.
I think that
Um,
could be a good option to help reduce moving costs.
yeah. And another thing we could also for we if we can't get students, we can assist
Right.
monetarily for a moving company, that type of thing. You said it would be about $4,000 to move.
I'm gonna think. Come back later. Um, yeah. Okay, cool. So do you want to talk numbers?
Yeah, I think we're at a pretty good point. So,
Okay, sounds good.
and I know just off of throwing it out, so current market value that we looked at the house was approximately from 500 to $525,000. I don't know if you've been seeing similar numbers.
Um, yeah, yeah. What so I see I also know that 2 years ago you offered $565,000.
Yeah, we had made that offer. So, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know why that offer was made versus because assuming property values are increasing in the area, um, why the offer was made, but definitely that, I guess it's almost bracketed by as far as the actual property of the house, not necessarily how this payment's going to work out, but somewhere between that 500 to 565, because that was our most previous offer on it. Um, which I was again talking about stretching it out. I just was looking at. You said it's 3,000 a month for the apartment she's looking at, right?
Yes.
So, assuming I put in, um, 12 months in a year times 10 years, so that puts her at 99 years old. Um, multiply by 3,000, that's 360,000. So for the next 10 years, she needs, and that's actually if she takes a year to move out, or even she stays there for 2 years, that would put her at 101 at that point, um, which I think is a pretty like realistic start. So 360,000, um, and again, this I'm saying that's how much it'll be to cover her living. So I'm that's sort of the number I'm looking at as far as what are we going to pay incrementally, and then anything on top of that could just be like any additional money could potentially just be lump summed, um, and whether she either wants it now and she keeps it, invests it, does whatever she wants, or if she just wants it us to save it, or us to keep it, but then contractually right now, like once she passes, that gets added to her estate, to then be divided amongst her children. I would imagine she would just want it now, but
So yeah, if we went with that offer that after rent, and that's assuming she spends her money only on rent, not on anything else,
mhm.
that would leave $165,000 divided by three children would leave her kids about $55,000, which is not nothing. Um, but would you be okay if I went over some of the numbers that I researched previously?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna see if I have a pencil here real quick, just to. All right, I got a pen here, so.
Okay, so 2 years ago, and may I remind you that Miss Schuster is not currently under pressure to sell the house.
Right.
2 years ago, she was offered $565,000 for the house.
Okay.
When we calculate for inflation, in today's dollars, that would be about $651,000 by my
Okay.
calculation. I understand that you're a school with a private school with about 7,500 students. Is that correct?
Yep, that's what we're looking at.
But my research, I see that on average, the cost to attend a Christian private school is between $50,000 and $60,000 per year.
Mhm.
So if we have 7,500 students paying $60,000, that totals to $450 million in revenue per year.
Mhm.
Conservatively, $50,000, $375 million a year. And I also researched financial aid. I couldn't figure out if financial aid is actually something that the government gives to your school or if it's something that the school waives.
Yep.
But even so, let's just consider that it's waived. I'm still calculating that if you have 7,500 students paying $26,000, you're generating $195 million per year.
That
Can I ask
so
you about your budget a little bit?
and so that all those numbers definitely do sounds uh like they are. I'm sorry. In a few minutes. Yeah. Uh, so right now, sorry, I just got uh, so I don't have the actual like records of our school's funding. I can say that a lot of that money is going to paying our faculty, building upkeep, construction of new buildings, things like that. And just so you're tracking, it looks like there is a remaining meeting time that's up above.
I was
But
seeing that.
yeah, I think
Oh,
these
we
Zoom
have nine
meetings might
minutes
be a little.
still.
Yeah, well, I think we should be
If
good.
it comes to an end, we can just start a new meeting.
Yeah, but so I mean, as soon as you start adding faculty, though, you're looking at a lot of our faculty being paid, um, you good salaries.
And how many
Uh,
faculty do you have?
and that's another something where by my estimates for this size, we're probably looking at as far as professional education faculty, anywhere from 100 to 200 people probably to have for this amount of students. So I could
So
be,
if you're paying all your faculty, if you max out at 200 faculty and they're each getting paid $100,000 per year, which would be, from what I understand, a generous salary for a small school, that's only $20 million per year.
yeah, I see that. I think realistically though, it's not so much what is this school making as much as it's what is the like we're still bounded by what's the value of this property, right? So we're only able to
Actually,
pay.
not, I would say, because the property belongs to Miss Schuster and she's not under a huge pressure to sell.
Yeah, understandable, but also we have other options, like we can put parking lots in other lots that we bought and things like that. So there is still the limitation that like we are going to. I'm not saying that we have to pay exactly what the value of the property is, but I am saying that there is a reasonable limitation as to what we can do, just based on uh, at what point does it become easier for us just to take one of the other lots we have, put the parking lot there instead. Uh,
Right, I understand.
so
And can I
so I
ask you,
oh good.
if you're going to be building your religious center in this area, have you run the long-term costs of building a parking lot in a different area where you're going to have to pay for transit as well?
So we do have lots already that are essentially adjacent to Miss Schuster's lot, so the transit wouldn't really be significant. It wouldn't be something where we'd have to bus people or anything like that.
Are you not paying
Um,
for that? Or are people walking?
it again, if you're crossing one lot just on the
Oh, it's
sidewalk,
just
that's
across
something
the street.
yeah, like we're in close proximity.
Oh, okay, I
So,
understand.
yep. Um, but I was thinking, so if Miss Schuster's interested in us covering the cost of her rent for essentially we're going to say the duration of her life. So we calculated that 10 years, if she moves out in 2 years, that puts her at 101 years old. That's $360,000.
Mhm.
That's the part. So the school would pay 360,000 to her, split up over. And if she passes before that, any of that remaining money gets put into her estate. On top of that, we can talk numbers as far as what else we're willing to pay for just additional money that isn't stretched out, right? So
And what
I
do you
was
mean by that?
thinking, so
Like
like,
a lump sum?
yes,
Okay.
So again, it's not that we have to have it all stretched out. So I was essentially thinking there's 360,000, like a pot of that money that is given to Miss Schuster for the next 10 years after she moves out in 2 years. Um, and we add there's additional money that's just given to her now, which is help because obviously she's not going to take 360,000 for this house. But is she looking at potentially 500? So you said your property value, your estimate is a little bit over $600,000 or somewhere in that range based on inflation.
Based on what you offered 2 years ago, calculated at
Yes.
inflation, the 2 years ago offer would be $651,000,
Mhm.
651, $946.
And we're seeing current market values as 500,000 to 525,000. But if Miss Schuster received 575,000 as a whole, is that a number that she would be interested in? Because we're seeing that's 575,000 as a whole. 360,000 of it is paid out over the course of 10 years. So she receives 215,000 now. Um, and then that 360,000 is uh sorry, what is it, $3,000 at a time for rent, um, for up to the 10 years. If she passes before that, the rest of the money just gets given to her estate immediately, just based on whenever that happens.
Um, I think we should go back to the interests. So you're looking
Mhm.
at building a parking lot here, correct?
Yes.
How badly do you want this parking lot?
It's not critical. Effectively, our alternatives that we're looking at is we have the ability to, because we already own most of the stuff around this property, so we can just transition to other property, like build there. So it's not that this is a do or die situation for us. It would just be effectively, it would be convenient to have this lot. And the one thing I was trying to find that I could not is a lot map because that would be helpful. How so? I just know that we have adjoining lots. So because we already
So
have
Miss
the
Schuster's
lots.
house is on a 6,000 square foot lot.
Mhm.
So, and I've calculated, I've researched that it costs between $3 and $6 per square foot to build a parking lot. So we're looking between $1,800 and $3,200 post payment of the house,
Right.
um, which is not terribly much. And are you going to be generating revenue from the religious center or the hall that you're building?
From what we're looking at, it's difficult to say because from the religious center, I would not expect that. Um, from a performing arts center, I would imagine that for because it's for our music and theater department, I would imagine they're trying to cover their own costs just through ticket sales, things like that. But it's not necessarily like a college football stadium or something where it's like a massive money generator. It's more just this is for our music and theater department. Surely they'll sell concessions or whatever to try to offset the costs with, but those costs aren't necessarily to offset the construction of the building. It's just for keeping the music and theater department somewhat like adequately funded so they can keep providing that for our students.
Okay. Um, do you want to pause this and start a different recording really quick?
Yeah, I would be down to do that.
Okay, hold on.